So this brings us now to the third chapter of the trilogy, assuming at this point Warner Brothers hasn't gone bankrupt after the first two went completely belly up.
Yeah.
And they're still willing to stick it out and get to the final payoff. This is, I would envision the title being Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, which is a title people don't use for him very often. I don't know too many people use that of his various monikers, if that one comes up
It's
too
less
often.
common, but it's well known in the comics.
Yeah, the fans of Superman know
Yeah.
it, but I don't know that your general audience hears it too often now.
Yeah.
So, but the Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, final capping of the trilogy. Here we have from the saving of the sun that happens at the first one. We kind of go back to that. We start with that, a little bit of a flashback here, and we see it echoing through the universe, going all through the universe, and eventually making its way out towards where Krypton would have been. And the ramifications of it actually cause a rupture in the Phantom Zone that frees Zod and those that had rebelled and been with him and vanished into the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
So now they are free from it, which is a little bit off of Superman 2 when he has the nuclear bombs and for some reason they can get out to the Phantom Zone. But it's going off the same idea.
Yeah.
So Zod and company are now out of the Phantom Zone and they are able to make their way to Earth. They find that Earth is the place that has living beings, and so they make their way to Earth, and their plan is to conquer, right? Not to terraform, but to conquer. And as they approach, they obviously have the advantages of knowing and understanding things that Superman himself would not have known, that Kal-El would not know about his planet, about how the suns work or anything like that. So they are aware that the sun is what's going to supercharge them.
Is this pretty much right after the events of the second film, or
well,
still kind of in the 30s at this point?
You're still in the 30s. You'd be getting towards like the mid 30s at this point. You'd be a few years delayed just because you think of how long something moves through space, right? I mean, it's not going to be instantaneous that it makes its way out to where Krypton would have been. So, not that it's going to take thousands upon thousands of years, which probably scientifically would have been what it would be.
Gloss over that too.
Krypton's not a real planet, so we don't have to worry about these things,
Yeah.
So they make their way to Earth, and at first, Superman is excited because here he thought he was the sole survivor of Krypton.
Yeah.
Now it's like my people. I can relate to them. I can tell them about this. So he kind of has this affinity for Zod, and Zod takes him in, and Zod is nurturing him, right? And so he finds this whole kind of idea to be intriguing. Like, okay, we can find this kind of home as a Kryptonian. I can really truly know what it means to be Kryptonian. But then, of course, he realizes Zod's intention to basically take over the Earth.
Kneel before Zod!
Right, and realizing no, that you have to coexist with each other, right? So that sets up the conflict that becomes the big, huge kind of blockbuster movie that you would want as an audience, right? So instead of like what they did with Zack Snyder, which is start with that in your first movie, you build yourself up to it so that this big final battle has all this weight that you've accumulated from the previous story that's led to it. And so you have here, of course, the usual cast of characters with Zod that are fighting alongside him. Superman's basically the only defense. The army is being destroyed left and right. And I imagine this, again, does take a little bit from Superman 2, but that was a very emotional scene for me as a kid when Superman has to fly away. So I have to replicate it on some level. That he realizes he can't beat them. And so he has to fly away, and you have the big emotional appeal of like, oh my gosh, Superman's left us, he's abandoned us. And then everybody surrenders, and Zod is now being basically enshrined. What Superman knows, and Zod does not know, is kryptonite. That kryptonite actually makes you weak. And so...
Is this the first time we're seeing kryptonite?
We're not... Yes, kryptonite is introduced in the third film. Kryptonite is taught to him by Lex Luthor, who then becomes an ally, in a sort, with Superman.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Lex.
I would kind of ignore him a little bit in the second one. He's kind of in the background, just kind of like a secondary concern. He's not really a big thing. This is where he becomes more like, I have to actually ally with Superman.
Yeah.
Because this man is good to destroy us all. And so
And it would bring some interesting callbacks to the first film.
exactly, right? You're trying to get the bookends,
Yeah.
trying to get the bookends here, right? And so Superman learns from Lex Luthor about kryptonite and what it does. And thus he's able to use that to put an end to Zod. Now, my thought is, because Superman doesn't kill people. Well, before Zack Snyder, he didn't really kill people. So he doesn't actually kill Zod with the kryptonite. Rather, Zod is given it as a token. He presents it kind of as a ruse. I'm going to surrender to you, and out of filiage to you, knowing that this is the best path for the sake of everybody here.
Yeah.
Here's this, token of our home, of kryptonite, of Krypton, and it's given him kryptonite, which makes him vulnerable, and then that's coordinated with the army that then is able to move on Zod and his people, as they would have like these medallions and things made of kryptonite that are just making them weak, and then they're able to conquer them. And so it's not Superman himself as like this sole savior, but really helping other people to figure out how they can then save themselves in this situation. And then the great ending to this is that he gives the kryptonite to, at that time would be President Roosevelt, right? If you're going to be historical, right? He gives it to him basically saying, here's your check on me. Like, I'm not just to be left unchecked.
Checks and balances.
Exactly, yes.
Unlike Roosevelt.
Unlike Roosevelt. But he would give it to them to say, basically, I'm not supposed to be all powerful.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't be. Like, he had gotten to that height and he realizes the danger of it. That's what he learns in the third film. That much power is corrupting. And so you can't have that kind of power. You have to have something that's going to keep you in check. And so that's why he gives the kryptonite away.
And that shows his dedication to doing the right thing as well.
Truth, justice, and
The American way.
the American way, right? So
Yeah,
he's
the part that gets left out.
yeah, we can't say that anymore. But so yeah, it'd be the Superman we know, right? And this is him. And then at the end of the day, he just you have the Lois Lane love story kind of being there throughout it all. She's
Yeah.
always kind of around, and they have banter and they have all those fun little things they're doing. But he, at the end of the day, realizes he has to be Superman. So he chooses not to try to embrace a relationship with her or anything like that. He's like, I have to be Superman. The world does need me. And so I will be Superman. And I realize, in a certain sense, this is my calling. And that's how your trilogy ends.
So hearing it again, yeah, a lot of these details are coming back to me now. And it's hard for me to criticize it to a great degree. I mean, we talked about some of the plot holes and maybe some of the things that the audience would be in on before they would occur in the films. And that may undercut the impact and the appeal to some degree, but
I just see
I
this
like
as
the
like
idea
this is
a
like
lot.
for the Superman film that Superman fans deserve, right? I mean, I think of it this way. Like, I feel like as a Superman fan, we just been getting shit on for like the past decade.
yeah, well, absolutely.
And so this is part of where it's been coming from, is this idea that, man, like we haven't had a real solid Superman treatment in decades.
And some could argue that we've never had a great representation of Superman. I mean,
Other than Fleischer.
yeah, I love, Christopher Reeve's depiction of the character. But I mean, let's face it, the films have problems and they're not great, right? Even though I'm still a big fan, especially the first two.
Oh, you're not a fan of Superman 4?
Well, even three has its moments, but you could argue that no one's really gotten it completely right. And if I, was wanting to make a Superman film, this is the route I would go personally. I mean, just something a bit more rooted in the tradition of the character, but a little smaller scale, but it builds up to that big climactic sort of battle that you would expect to see. And yeah, it doesn't shove it right away into the first film. And it almost seems like people are afraid to show Superman as he truly is meant to be as a character, right? I mean, there's almost like this shame involved, like, oh, we can't have a superhero that's like, the Boy Scout, or he's too, goody-goody or whatever you want to say about Superman, and that the criticisms that have been leveled against him over the years. But to have someone just embrace that and say, this is a character that is wanting to do the right thing. He's not always brooding and tortured. He's not, crushing people's heads and smashing buildings and breaking necks and doing all this nonsense that we're seeing now. He's someone that has values and has virtuous ambition, and we shouldn't be afraid of that.
Exactly, and yet you can still do it in a way that is emotionally resonant, that's believable,
and still has a sense of humanity to it, right? I mean, he is an alien, yeah, but there are aspects to him as a person that are important to emphasize. That feeling of being an outsider, which I think is an important part of his character, but it's not everything. And it seems like the current incarnations, again, that's really everything.
Well, in a certain sense, this trilogy, which actually maybe you try to pitch it instead of as a trilogy, as like a 10-part Netflix series, maybe you could actually get it made.
Yeah, there you go.
But if you did this trilogy, I think the way you hit the point of humanity, it's really ultimately about what makes you human, right? I mean, that's a certain sense, instead of like this current emphasis of being, well, look at him, he's an alien, he's an alien, he's an alien. Yeah, okay, confront that, but like, what makes you a person? Like,
Yeah.
what does humanity really mean? And that's to me much more thematically, philosophically interesting than what we're doing right now with the character. And that's why I think this, if people were willing to actually sit down and commit themselves to this character, they would see the benefit of it that way.
I mean, that's what Superman, I think, ultimately is meant to do. I mean, he was created as a very simple character to sell comic books, right? Feats of strength, etc. But he's meant to reveal something about ourselves. And he, as an alien, he has a special perspective to embrace the best parts of humanity. And that's what I love about the character. I mean, that's ultimately what he's meant to be. And to me, this take on him, captures the essence of that, but also doesn't ignore the important aspects of the mythology that really need to be there.
So, make it happen, Warner. We want it.
Yeah, that's right. Send that multi-million-dollar check our way, and we'll get to writing.
Yes, I'll happily write this. Who do you think should direct it? If you're going to do a Superman movie, who's the director that should be in charge of it?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, Matt Reeves is doing Batman right now. That's one that would come to mind, I guess, but not because he's doing Batman, but he's someone that I think could handle a trilogy well. It's tough. I like Denis Villeneuve a lot. I think
he's talented.
Yeah. Granted, Blade Runner 2049 did not burn up the box office for Warner Brothers.
All the more reason he should do these movies.
The most expensive art film ever made. I think he's even quoted to have said himself. Probably Villeneuve. I mean, I think he would be someone that would have the sensibilities to really make those sensitive, emotional moments work. But he understands scope, and he understands action, and he understands how to make something feel epic in a unique way. So he'd probably be my top pick.
Yeah, that's. I hadn't thought of him as the candidate. I think you're right, though. He probably is the best pick for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about any casting thoughts?
I haven't really thought about that, I guess.
My thought is on Superman. Here's the deal. Henry Cavill would have made a great Superman.
He's not bad. I don't have a problem with him as an actor. I really don't. It's the material.
Yeah.
It's the tone, it's the script. I mean, but as an actor, the kind of performance he can deliver as Superman, I think would actually work well in your idea, in your trilogy. But what other ideas do you have?
Well, he'd be the only person that I think right now I think of that could do it. But obviously you have the baggage right now because of the other movies existing, having him be in it. But I would think at this point that you have to do unknown. You have to go with somebody who's not known, who you can't associate with anything, and can just become Superman. I think that'd be it.
And that was the approach with Superman Returns with Brandon Routh, and
Although they were trying very much to replicate Christopher Reeve in a certain sense with him.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I can see that. Not to have the baggage of a pre-existing actor. Yeah.
For Lois Lane, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise pick. Mandy Moore. She's maybe a little too old for it now, but she was a little younger, especially. Like if I was starting this
I could
thing
see
like
that,
back,
though.
because she's actually a pretty talented actress, and she
Yeah.
would have the spunk, I think, and she'd have the sincerity. So that's who I'd go for.
When's the last time she was in a movie?
Wasn't she on a TV show, that Parenthood TV show or something, or some?
Oh,
Not Parenthood.
This Is Us.
This Is
Wasn't
Us,
That
yeah.
NBC show
Yeah.
that everyone was weeping
Yeah,
about.
I haven't actually watched network TV in I think like 15 years.
I can't remember the last time I watched a show on regular TV.
But she was in that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh. Well, Matt, I mean, I've been jeopardizing. Well, Matt, I've been
Jeopardizing our friendship.
jeopardizing our viewers. Blind by Media no longer exists after this. No, I've been monopolizing this conversation. But as a lifelong Superman fan, what are your thoughts? What would you want to do if you were given the reign?
Well, I just made a few notes, just thinking about, if you wanted to do, I guess the question I asked myself, if you want to do a dark, brooding Superman story, how would you make that work? And I think the wrong approach is what's been taken recently is to start with that idea from the get-go, right? That he hasn't become Superman yet, and he's already this dark, brooding character. To me, I would take it to the other end of Superman's life to say, what would it look like if Superman became disillusioned, became bitter? He started out with the best of intentions. He started out with this kind of purity of heart, but he is burned out, dealing with the ills of the world. And I think that would be a very interesting starting point. Zack Snyder, I guess, kind of touches on that in some ways. He shows the burden of being Superman and how it's this great test of character to some degree. And he can't save everybody at once, but everyone expects him to. That kind of idea. But more so, just this idea of like Superman really being ready to retire and not in a satisfying way. So, Kingdom Come is one of my favorite comics.
That's a good series
of all time, and no one has seemingly had the guts to try to adapt it for the screen. For a long time, there was a rumor that there was going to be an animated version of it, and there's been so many different DC animated films, they've never done Kingdom Come, which is always kind of strange to me. And I think it's so good that people are afraid to take it on. They're afraid to screw it up, and I can understand that. But there are elements of that. A direct adaptation of that would be beautiful, but there are elements in it that I would kind of pull out. This idea of Superman kind of being bitter, kind of being tired of the world. And in Kingdom Come, he's living back on the farm in Smallville, and he's kind of gone back to his roots. And I like that idea. And in my version of a Superman story, I would even have him be married to Lois. He's retired. He's kind of in the twilight of his life. He maybe doesn't age like we normally do, and maybe Lois is older, and he still has some youth to him, some vigor to him, but he's growing gray, and he has this kind of elderly quality to him, but he's by no means old. It starts with a visit from a younger man, and this younger man is actually the new and current Batman. Comes to see him, and this is kind of my dream of bringing the idea of Batman Beyond to the screen. So this would be the person that picked up the mantle from Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is maybe even dead by this point, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe you start with Bruce Wayne's funeral,
yeah, that would be an interesting.
and then
opening.
Clark Kent goes back from that to Smallville.
Because I was also kind of thinking about how do you make Batman and Superman work in a film? Because again, like I said earlier, they're so diametrically opposed as characters, not only from just the attributes of the characters, but just the tone of the stories that you tell for each of those characters. But this would be almost kind of a mentor, mentee kind of a relationship between Kal-El, and an older Clark Kent, and this younger Batman. So this younger Batman comes to see him to ask for his help because there's a new, basically, computer system or AI system that's been developed that's going to be coming online, and he's very, very concerned about the repercussions of this system. So you can call it Skynet, you can call it whatever you want, right? But it's this idea that technology has advanced to the point where all these countries are signing up to go on this one network to try to unify communications, but also streamline how everything works, right? How water's distributed.
How about the
power,
name of this computer
government.
system is Brainiac.
Well, you're spoiling it for me right now,
Oh,
man.
damn it. Sorry.
So, Brainiac is the villain in this film. I mean, Brainiac is always a character that I've wanted to see on the big screen.
This is an awesome idea. I love this.
Oh, okay, cool. And no one's really gotten it right. Even in the animated series, he was just
Yeah.
kind of like this robotic.
Character is awesome in the comics, but there's been nothing worthwhile for adaptations.
Yeah. And this is really the connection he has back to Krypton, right? That brings his past back, right? So as to how Brainiac fits into the entire picture, I haven't quite worked out. The idea I had was Batman comes to Superman knowing that Superman has defeated Brainiac in the past, and Superman has isolated Brainiac in the Fortress of Solitude in the Arctic. He's like jailed in the Fortress of Solitude. And he's saying, Batman is saying, this new system is coming online. I'm afraid of what's going to happen. We need help to basically defeat this system. And the only way we can do it is to enlist the aid of Brainiac. So Superman is called back into action to return to the Fortress of Solitude, which he hasn't been to for decades. Basically bring the fortress out of mothballs, bring Brainiac out of mothballs, convince Brainiac to help them defeat this new AI. And the big twist is that the new AI has been Brainiac all along.
Oh, I love this. I love this. This idea, Matt, is so good. I could see someone running with it and then giving it to Alex Kurtzman to destroy.
So the genius of it is Superman basically is activating the new AI by releasing Brainiac from the Fortress of Solitude. And he and Batman have to ultimately work together to defeat Brainiac, but he also has to re-enlist the remaining members of the Justice League. Specifically Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman would have to come back because she's a character that would...
Green Lantern would
Green
be
Lantern
somebody.
would be recalled
Yep.
from space. He's left Earth long ago. I would keep the group quite small, though. You know, I would have maybe just the four of them. Green
Yeah.
Lantern,
You don't need the
Wonder
others.
Woman, Superman, and this young Batman to ultimately defeat Brainiac. So that's the idea I had. You know, so you could have this kind of darker, more brooding Superman, but his arc is he starts very cynical, very bitter, but by the end of the film, he finds his purpose yet again. He recalls those days where he had hope. And ultimately, maybe he returns to retirement again at the end of the film, but he has this kind of new lease on life and this new positive outlook. And maybe it restores his relationship with Lois as well, which has been on the rocks in the beginning of the film. So I thought, you know, if you're going to take a darker take on Superman, or if you're going to try to do a darker take on Superman, that's the way I would do it.
And that's the way to get it to work, I guess, in the more modern age, right? When you have technology and all these things, that's a way to do it.
Well, and that's one thing I was thinking about, you know, the way technology is heading nowadays, especially with AI. How do you address that in a new superhero film? And I thought that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah. Would you see this, because as I hear this strikes me as like the perfect like mini-series, you know, not as a single film, but like as a mini-series.
It would probably work better as a miniseries. Yeah.
Because you could develop and flesh it out more, and the character dynamics could be a little bit like a 3 or 4 part, you know, 6-hour deal or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe 6 to 8 1 hour episodes, something like that. But it would take some of the best elements from Kingdom Come, and again, it wouldn't be this giant, cataclysmic sort of explosion-filled battle. It would be there would be action, but it would be more a bit more subdued, Uh, and again, it's like this idea of bringing a bunch of old people back into action, right? It's not like they'd be coming in on wheelchairs or anything, but there would be a sense of clumsiness to their initial teamwork and their initial actions to try to defeat Brainiac. And they would, in a way, have to learn how to work together again. So I think there's some interesting room there for character development, for arcs that would be satisfying to see on screen.
I love it. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna jump in on board with this. So what we'll do is we'll talk to Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
We'll get them to give me about $500 or $600 million to make my trilogy, and then this probably for like $200 million, you get yourself a rockin', like 6-8 hour miniseries on HBO. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Come on, Warner, pay up. That's a great idea. I love that idea. I loved it.